This is the living room, no, family room. I'm looking at the inner walls. I'm about a foot above the firebox. I'm at a straight piece of pipe that is on top of the offset elbow. I believe that's an offset elbow. And what we're looking at here is the offset elbow is not attached to that vertical or straight pipe. And this is what I should see, but instead I see exposed lances. Some people call them dimples. Regardless of what we call them, this is a connection. If we read the manual, you'll find that the manual indicates what a complete connection is and what they're supposed to see. And this is what it talks about. I should see this. So the only way I know of to really truly correct this is by removal of the chimney and then basically put it back. That can be done generally without damaging and destroying walls. Again, I've seen one company fix it without doing that, and what they did do though is they may have reattached it, but they also damaged the components, so therefore ultimately replacement of those components was needed, which basically meant removal of the chimney like I'm talking about now, and then putting it back. I'm going to pause recording and restart when I get to the top. So this is the very top of the system. We're looking at the inner walls. This is our termination cap. And this right here is an elbow. And this is its attachment to another elbow. And now we're at the straight pipe. Basically, when we're looking at the connections, this is what I expect to see. This is what a correctly attached connection looks like. Basically, connection meaning two components attached. And this is another elbow. I believe this is a return elbow. In every set, there's an offset and a return. So I believe this is a return. So right here, this is our return, and this is our offset, and this right here is a connection that is not fully engaged. Manufacturer requires full engagement, which makes sense. In a case like this, I never recommend trying to pull that connection down to engage it. First of all, one could argue that that connection is actually damaged. If you look at the lances or those pop-outs, those dimples that I talked about in the very beginning, they're actually damaged. So technically, a new component's needed anyways. One reason why I don't like to just pull down on the component and attach it in that manner is because why is it disengaged to begin with? Generally speaking, when it is disengaged or partially disengaged like that, there's a reason for it. Not always, but most of the time there is, and usually it's because there are some clearance issues. In other words, there wasn't enough room to begin with, or there was a piece of wood in the way, and instead of chopping away the wood, and sometimes you can do that, instead of cutting or trimming the wood to create the proper clearance, they chose to have that pipe not exactly attached as it should. With that, we don't really know why it's disengaged like that. All I can do is tell you that it should be engaged correctly, and technically that pipe should be replaced anyways, that bottom section. So with that, why not just remove it, engage it correctly, ensure that everything else is correct. I think we're justified in that case, especially since the master has insulation on top of the fireplace. So it gives us another reason to look inside the chase here to make sure everything is appropriate in this installation as well. We have some large gaps where the finished materials meet. That's easy to correct. We have some up there as well. Technically, this is an incorrect system. Personally, on my house, I would not be replacing it, but that is my choice as a homeowner, and you obviously have that choice as well. The manufacturer of this particular fireplace wants the fuel to be fully raised off the firebox, and they want air to circulate below the fuel. That is one of their requirements. Whether it's needed or not, obviously we can argue about that, but that's the reason they want something like this not to be here. Generally, they want, if you're going to have an appliance like this, there's usually a raised tray that is designed for that purpose. Regardless, a screen should have a screen. Technically, this does not meet the requirement for hearth extension because it is basically a metal sort of laminate over a particle board. And also, the hearth extension technically isn't delineated far enough. So, I have a hard time removing this myself. But regardless, technically, that's some sort of cover should be placed over this that actually meets the heat rating, and one should technically put some sort of tape here, which is silly, but that would technically be the requirement, some sort of tape here or something to delineate the actual hearth extension. Minor points. With that, I would put the focus on the chimney on both of them. Ensure you review my written report for my findings and recommendations.